All right, imagine this. You're the most powerful man in the world, the Pharaoh of Egypt. And you're jolted awake by a nightmare so vivid, so terrifying, that it sends a shockwave through your entire empire. See, this isn't just some bad dream. In the ancient world, this was a message from the gods. And for Pharaoh, it felt like a terrible, terrible omen.
And that one single, troubling vision, it kicks off a chain of events that is going to test everyone's faith, reveal true character, and literally reshape a nation. So, what does happen when the fate of millions hangs on the meaning of a dream?
Well, that's what we're digging into. We are deconstructing the incredible story from Genesis chapter 41, a story that stars a forgotten prisoner, a totally desperate Pharaoh, and a plan so brilliant it would save an entire civilization.
So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the crisis itself, that royal dream. Then we'll see how a solution suddenly appears out of nowhere. We'll look at the kind of character it takes to stand under that kind of pressure, break down the actual strategic plan, watch one of the most dramatic rises to power ever, and finally we'll think about the legacy of it all.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It all starts in the middle of the night, with a dream that puts the most powerful empire on Earth right on the edge of a cliff.
Now, to really get why everyone was freaking out, you have to understand the culture. For the Egyptians, dreams weren't just random bits of pizza-fueled nonsense. No, they were direct-line communications from the gods. They could tell the future. So when the pharaoh has a nightmare, it's not a personal problem. It's basically a national security alert.
And oh man, what a nightmare it was. First, he dreams of 7 beautiful, fat cows coming up from the Nile River, the source of all life in Egypt. But then they get eaten by 7 ugly, skeletal cows. And the weirdest part? After eating the fat cows, the skinny ones are still just as skinny. Then, the whole thing happens again, but this time with 7 healthy heads of grain being swallowed up by 7 thin, withered ones. It's just deeply bizarre and unsettling, and nobody, not the magicians, not the wise men, nobody has a clue what it means.
So, with all of Egypt's best and brightest totally stumped, and the pharaoh getting more and more desperate by the minute, the solution pops up from the most unlikely place you could possibly imagine: a prison cell. A long-forgotten key to this whole crisis is about to be remembered.
And this is where the timing is just incredible. You have to realize for 13 years, Joseph has been a slave and then a prisoner. It's been 2 full years since he correctly interpreted the royal cupbearer's dream, and then was immediately forgotten about. But he isn't remembered a day too soon or a day too late. He's remembered at the precise, exact moment that the most powerful man on earth needs him the most.
So Joseph gets yanked out of the dungeon, he's given a shave and a change of clothes, and he's rushed into the throne room. I mean, after years of injustice and suffering, this is his moment. He could be angry, he could be arrogant, but what he does next, well, it tells you everything you need to know about his character.
Instead of trying to take any credit, Joseph immediately points away from himself. Pharaoh says to him, "I've heard you can interpret dreams." And Joseph's response is just profound. He says, "It is not I. God will give the answer." And you know, this isn't some kind of false modesty. This is a statement of absolute confidence, just not in himself. It's in God. And it's that humility right there that sets the stage for everything that's about to happen.
And here's the thing. Joseph doesn't just explain what's wrong. He delivers a brilliant, actionable solution. He flips a switch, going from dream interpreter to crisis manager in a split second.
So first, the interpretation. He says the 2 dreams are actually one single message from God. Egypt is about to have 7 years of unbelievable abundance, but they will be followed by 7 years of a famine so crushing that it will completely erase any memory of the good times. And the fact that the dream was repeated, that means it's a done deal. It is absolutely going to happen, and it's going to happen soon.
Then he lays out the master plan. It's a 4-step national strategy. First, appoint a wise leader to run the whole show. Second, put in a 20% tax on all produce during those good years. Third, and this is the genius part, centralize and store all that surplus grain in cities directly under Pharaoh's control. Now, not only is this a brilliant agricultural policy, it is a politically savvy move that consolidates an immense amount of power and resources right under the throne before the crisis even starts.
And this incredible display of wisdom and character right in the middle of a crisis, it leads to one of the most stunning promotions in all of history. We're about to see Joseph go from the prison floor to the absolute pinnacle of power.
Pharaoh he's blown away. He turns to his officials and basically says, "Can we find anyone else like this? A man who has the Spirit of God in him." And right then and there, in a single day, Joseph goes from prisoner to prime minister. He's given the signet ring, which was like getting the presidential seal. He's dressed in royal clothes, and he's made second in command over the entire Egyptian empire.
And to seal the deal on his new identity, Pharaoh gives him a new Egyptian name, Zapanath-paneah. What's fascinating is that scholars still debate what it means, but the proposed translations tell you everything you need to know. The God speaks and he lives, revealer of secrets, or maybe even savior of the world. His new name perfectly captures his new world-saving job.
But you know, the story doesn't just stop with Joseph's big promotion. We can see the lasting impact, the legacy of this unseen hand at work, both in Joseph's own personal healing and in some amazing echoes we can still find in the historical record.
Before the famine even started, Joseph's life was completely transformed. He had 2 sons, and the names he gave them, well, they tell his whole story. He named his first son Manasseh, which means God has made me forget all my hardship. He named the second Ephraim, meaning God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. He found healing and a new purpose in the very same place where he had suffered so much.
And what's really incredible is that this ancient story seems to have echoes outside its own text. This right here is the famine stele. It's an inscription that was carved on an island in the Nile River, and it records an ancient Egyptian story about a devastating 7-year famine where grain was scarce and everyone was in trouble. Now, it's from a later period, and it's a different story, but it shows that the memory of a huge multi-year famine was a very real part of Egypt's own history.
You know, in the end, Joseph's entire story perfectly captures this idea from the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard. For 13 years, nothing in his life made sense. It was just one long line of betrayal, slavery, and injustice. But when you look back, you can see that every single step, every bit of hardship was actually getting him ready. And it kind of leaves us with a question, doesn't it? What parts of our own stories, the parts that feel messy and make no sense right now, will only be understood when we look backwards?